Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. All right. So, as we can tell by the title today, we're going to be speaking on the topic of Jews of color. All right. This is just a source material video just to give our people information, give our people references, sources, and all that to just show that there were indeed Jews of color. We can show that the ancient Israelites were people of color even up until this day. So that's what we're going to just be doing, showing a few references, a couple pictures, and things of that sort to show the history of Jews of color. All right. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we get started, of course, we're going to give our praises, honor, and glory to our Elohim, our Father, for giving us the ability to review this information today. All right. So again, we'll be getting to Jews of color, short references for this topic throughout the centuries. All right. So we go ahead and get started. Add this to the screen. All right. So Negroid Jews. All right. This is what we'll be talking about. Negroid Jews, Jews of color, Black Jews, Black Hebrew Israelites. Can we find a recurring theme of people saying that the complexion or the Jews, in a sense, were dark people or Negroid people? All right. That's what we're going to be examining today. So the first source, new research of ancient history, all right, source to the left, and we're going to read what the highlighted. It says, the Jews by their own avowal being of Chaldean race, a branch of Black Arabs, it follows that they are real Ethiopians, all right? So again, we have two sources right here. We have two links within this one source, right? We have them being linked to Black Arabs, all right? We know the original Arabs were Black people or Black race, all right, and also being linked to Ethiopians. Now, this word Ethiopian can simply just mean black face or burnt face as well. So here again, we have Israelites or the ancient Israelites being said to be of a black race, a black stock, a Negroid stock. All right. Nature knows no color line. Starting at the highlighting. Furthermore, we have no proof that the original 70 Jews who went into Egypt were white. All right. We have no proof of that. According to their legends, they originated in Chaldea, and there is considerable evidence that the inhabitants of that region in the earliest times were Negroid. All right. So the ancestors of the Jews, or rather Abraham's people, were Negroid. So that means the Jews will be Negroid as well. It goes on to say, in fact, some writers said the Jews were an African people. All right. So as we go through these sources, we're going to continue to see this recurring theme. All right. Again, this is just source material, quick video to give our people source material and references they can go to, just to see these things or get these things. Ancient times, a history of the early world, source to the left. All right, shalom, shalom to everybody in the chat. Shalom, 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 shalom to everybody in the chat. Continuing, it says, well, we're going to start at the very top, basically. It says, the Hebrew slaves working in Egyptian brickyards must have looked like this when Moses led them forth into Asia. All right. So the Hebrew slaves working in the Egyptian brickyards must have looked like this when Moses led them into Asia or Canaan or the Levant. All right. And even below the picture, it says ancient Egyptian painting of a brickyard with Asiatic captives engaging in brickmaking. All right. And we know that Asiatics are Semitic peoples. Begins just source material. And here's another depiction of what these ancient Hebrews would have looked like within Egypt, all right? When they first became a nation, when they first became a race. You can find this at Biblical Archaeology out of Egypt. Okay. And even this is from the Egyptian tombs themselves, all right? You can find this on the Egyptian murals and walls that they depicted of the Israelite captives themselves. And we see they are a highly melanated people, as the previous sources or references just stated. All right. So continuing, the races of man, Robert Knox, source to the left. It says the purest of the Jewish race is a dark, tawny, yellow-colored person. All right. And yellow color can also be like a honey color, light skin blacks with jet black hair and eyes seemingly colored. There is no mistaking the race. When pure, it is Egyptian, that is African. So this author suggested that when the race is pure, they will look like Egyptians, or he said it is Egyptian, that is African. All right, meaning these Jews or these ancient Israelites were, African looking peoples. For this author to say this. All right. Next source, a short history of the Copts and their church. All right, a short history of the Copts and their church. Source to the left, and it says, where should we start? We're going to start at the second paragraph, 2 lines before the highlighted. It says, the other portion was the whole people of Egypt, who were called Queept, and were of mixed descent, among whom one could not distinguish a Copt from a Abyssinian, a Nubian, or a Israelite, and they were all Jacobites. All right, so by process of elimination, the Israelites will have to be black because we know the Copts were black, we know the Abyssinians are black, and we know the Nubians are black. All right. And again, this author is saying he couldn't tell the difference between any of these Hamitic peoples and Semitic peoples because they, I guess you can say, all look African, all had same skin complexions, probably different features, but again, they did have the same skin complexions. All right. A gazetteer of the Old and New Testaments. All right. Natural history of the Bible. It says, we're going to start from the very top. From the above particulars, extra grants as they are, some facts can be easily adduced. The first, that many foreigners were obligated to quit Egypt with the Israelites, and that therefore later were often confounded with a race with whom they had no connection. The second, that the Israelites were often taken for Ethiopians or Cushites. All right. And we know this is very true because we even have a record or a reference within our Holy Bible, within our scripture, within our oral traditions, telling us that we looked at like Ethiopians. All right. But it says, like who themselves became the subjects of hatred to the Egyptians. All right. So again, Israelites were taken for Ethiopians, and we see the same reference within the scripture. All right. The geography of Strabo or Strabo. All right. This is the source we'll be reading from next. And we will be beginning right before the highlighted section where it says, but. All right. But although there is such a mixture of inhabitants, the report most credited among many things believed respecting the temple of Jerusalem is that the Egyptians were the ancestors of the present Jews. All right. Now, why would they say the Egyptians were the ancestors of the present Jews? It's because what? The Israelites more than likely resembled the Egyptians. That's more than likely the main reason why they would say this. I'm sorry, family. I was doing something else. But again, Strabo said that it was attested or it was stated that the Egyptians were the ancestors of the Jews. All right. We know the Egyptians were a black Hamitic race. By default, that will make the Jews black as well. So again, we're just getting resources and source material on what these Jews would look like. Color, complexion, things of that sort. Next source, miscegenation, blending of the races, the American white man Negro. All right, source to the left. Now, this is very interesting. It says the Savior is represented very falsely in paintings as being light-haired and white-skinned, when in truth he must have been a very dark complexion, as were all the Palestinian Jews. All right. Again, Christ must have been a very dark complexion, as were all the Palestinian Jews. All right. So again, the ancient Palestinian Jews were a dark complexion. It even goes on to say towards the bottom, rendering it probable that the Jews were partly of Abyssinian or Negro origin. All right, so we keep seeing these Jews, these Israelites, being said to be descendants of, I guess you can say, Negroid races, Negroid peoples. We know that they are descendants of Shem, but according to these people, in their mind, they have to descend from Ham because they are so black. And this is very interesting as well because we actually have a Roman papyri dealing with the color of Jews within Rome during the Hellenistic period. All right. And this is coming from the beginnings of Jewishness. All right. And I do not want to butcher all these names because as we can see, it's in Greek. But starting at number one, we got Apollonios or Apollonos. And we see that he's honey colored. All right. Even if we go to number two, Sostratos, honey colored as well. All right. These can be attributed to light skinned blacks or red bones, as we like to call them. And Jonathas, honey colored as well. All right. So if we go all the way down this sheet, we'll see that all these Jews are listed off as honey colored. And even if we go to the second sheet, we see some listed off as dark colored skin as well as honey colored skin. All right. And these are Jews within Rome from the Hellenistic period from a Roman papyri. All right. And even during that time, the Romans said these people were people of color, honey colored and dark skinned. A lot of West Africans and African Americans are honey colored as well. And even this right here is interesting. We have from this journal article from JSTOR, facial image of the biblical Jews from Israel. All right, so this is from table 4. It says a man from Israel dated from the 6th century BC up to the AD, and a woman from Israel dated from the beginning of the CE or the AD period. All right, and we see these people definitely look like they're melanated. That looks like your average Negroid grandpa to the left, the Jew or the man discovered, or actually this is actually a facial reconstruction of dig sites. So this is a facial reconstruction of a Jew or a Jewish man on the left, as well as a daughter of Zion on the right. All right. And I know a lot of daughters of Zion that look like this sister to the right. So it's pretty interesting. And again, this is more than likely what ancient Israelites would have looked like. You know what I'm saying? Prior to the diaspora and things like that. Woolly hair, dark complexions, broad noses, things of that sort. You know, the African look. Not Hamitic, but Semitic Negroid type look. Ethiopic. All right, so now we're going to continue on to show more references of Black Jews within Africa, and even in India, the Americas, things of that sort. Again, just source materials, references for the people to where they if they need to, show evidence of Jews of color, they can just run to this video and get some sources from it. All right, so the first source is from a book called The Other, and we shall start. Let's see where we will start. We can start at the beginning of the second paragraph, where it says, near Tel Aviv, vice, hard drugs, and crime are as much part of the scene as in Notting Hill Gate. Some Black Jews, all right? So this is within Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and they're talking about Black Jews. So some Black Jews can just about read, all right, Bible lessons, but not write. Above all, the authorities discriminate consciously against Oriental Jews. The Black Jews will always have less chance to succeed. Even mixed marriages are frowned upon by the white Ashkenazi majority. All right, so this is in Israel. And again, we know that there was a white Ashkenazi majority, but we see that there's Black Jews within Israel. This is before the Ethiopian Jews even came in. So we see that there's Black Jews in Israel that's not even spoken about. But it says the Black Jews or Sephardi's are termed Franks a term comparable in Israel to nigger. All right. So even these people are being, these Jews in Israel are being called the same derogatory term that we are within America, just in their language. All right. So again, black Jews within Israel, but we're going to continue to read some more. It says, even so, there have been isolated spots of violence. The black Jews tend to congregate in ghettos and villages of their own. All right. So the black Jews tend to congregate in ghettos and villages of their own within Jerusalem. This is as much due to their own choosing as to preferential treatment given to certain white Jews by the authorities. All right. So again, we do have evidence of black Jews within Jerusalem in fairly recent times. All right after the start of the founding of the new Jewish state of Palestine, as they like to call it. And again, these were Sephardic Jews that came into Jerusalem and were called blacks or niggers. Okay, so next source right here, the works of Reverend Claudius Buchanan, right, is what we're going to read from next. And we're going to start at the very top. It says, it is only necessary to look at the countenance of the black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. All right. So this is very important. The author says the author says it is only necessary to look at the countenance of the black Jews to be satisfied that their ancestors must have arrived in India many ages before the white Jews. Their Hindu complexion and their very imperfect resemblance to the European Jews indicate that they have been detached from the parent stock in Judea many ages before the Jews in the West. All right. So it goes on to say, in the interior towns of Malabar, I was not able to distinguish the Jew from the Hindu. All right. And we know a lot of those Hindus are pitch black. All right. A lot of those Indians and things like that are pitch black. And so were the Jews. And even we have a depiction of one of these Jews in India or Malabar Cochin. Top of the page, it says Judios Malabar or Malabrese. We have a Jew and a Jewish to the right. Male Jew, female Jew, and we see there are dark complexions. All right, they are dark in complexion, and this is within India. All right, so next source, Travels in North Africa by Nahum. All right, by Nahum is the author, and we're gonna start at the top, the very top of the page. It says the Jews native to Africa must be subdivided as followed. All right. It says Judeo-Arabs, Jews in race, and Arabs in excuse me one second. Let me make this bigger. See what that says. All right, but it says Judeo-Arabs, Jews in race, and Arabs in customs who form the whole of the urban population in the main cities of the Barbary interior. All right. Now we're going to go to the second highlighted section. It says, even those communities which at a given point in their history received a sudden and large influx of European Jews, as was the case with Tunis and Tillamook, have managed to retain their African character thanks to the reinforcement by numbers of Judeo-Berbers from the interior. All right. So these Jews within North Africa, these Judeo-Berbers, and even these European Jews coming over from Spain and Portugal, which will more than likely be Sephardim, they were said to have African characters. All right. So they look like Africans. Again, recurring theme, source by source. Next source, the itinerary of Rabbi Benjamin of Toledo. All right. And this is dealing with some travels he did within East Africa. And he states all the cities and the countries inhabited by the people contain only about 100 Jews who are of black color, as well as the other inhabitants. All right. So just like the inhabitants of these locations were black, so were the Jews. The Jews are good men, observers of the law, and possess a Pentateuch, the prophets, and some little knowledge of the Talmud and its decisions. So again, within this country, the Jews were black, and so were the people. All right. And again, this is within Africa. History of the Jews. All right. Professor Gratz. It states David Rubini's appearance and manner were such as to inspire confidence. In both, there was something strange, mysterious, and eccentric. He was of dark complexion and dwarfish in stature. All right. And David Rubini is actually a Jew from the, I believe he was from the tribe of Reuben. He's from Yemen, and he migrated into, well, he traveled into Ethiopia and then up to Jerusalem and then up into Spain and things like that to converse and, talk to the other Jews. All right. And this Jew from Yemen is said to be dark in complexion and dwarfish in stature. All right. And it goes on to say he only spoke Hebrew, and that is in so corrupt and jargon that neither Asiatic Jews nor those of Southern Europe understood him. All right. So again, David Rubini, the Yemenite Jew, dark in complexion and dwarfish in stature. Next source. Researches into the physical history of mankind, all right? Starting at the beginning of the sentence prior to the highlighted section. It states, we are not sufficiently informed respecting the fact asserted by Oldendorf on the authority, of his black informants, that there are many Jews in Congo whose physical characteristics have assimilated those of the native inhabitants. All right. So according to the informants of Oldendorf, the black informants, which will more than likely be people that live in the Congo, they said that it was many Jews in the Congo who are blacker than, or whose physical characters have assimilated the natives. All right. So another source to go with that, Universal Geography or description, all the parts of the world on a new plane. It says a fact worthy of the attention of travelers is the account of Oldendorf. The kingdom of Luango contains black Jews, all right? Black Jews. Scattered throughout the country, they are despised by the Negroes who do not even desire to eat with them. They are occupied in trade and keep the Shabbat so strictly that they do not even converse on that day. All right, so these black Jews were so legit. More than likely, these are nothing but Bantus. But these Jews were so legit and so strict observers of the Shabbat that they didn't even talk. Right? He says they don't even converse on that day. They have a separate burying ground, very far from any habitation. The tombs are constructed with masonry and ornaments with Hebrew inscriptions, the singularity of which excites the laughter of the Negroes, who discern in them only serpents, lizards, and other reptiles. So again, black Jews within Congo, more than likely talking about your Bantu peoples, all right? Strict observers of the Shabbat and things of that sort. Continuing. International Journal of Trade and Commerce, all right? This is just an article, scholastic article, all right? And it says, one may be inclined to ask, where did white Jews originate and when, all right? So where did white Jews originate and when? That's a good question. What information do the British knew about the white Jews that informed their decision? Why settle in Africa? After all, ancient Jews, specifically the descendants of Zebulun and Asher tribes, are Negroes, all right? So again, they said the ancient Jews were Negroes, but specifically Zebulun and Africa, they're really Negroes, right? It is thought that similarly displaced ancient Hebrews began to arrive in West Africa before 202 BCE. The date associated with the Noak civilization. All right, so again, important thing to take from this source, after all, ancient Jews, specifically the descendants of Zebulun and Asher, are Negroes or black. And this is a very good source, a very interesting source to look at. This is dealing with Jews within Senegal. And it says the story of Senegal's hatred, inclusive Jewish community. And we're going to start where it says in the 15th century. All right. So in the 15th century, the Portuguese began to sail south along the western coast, searching for the sea route to India. Along the way, they landed in all sorts of places along the coast where they traded with the natives and documented everything they saw. One of these documents, written by anonymous Portuguese navigators, provides us with rare glimpses into a very strange phenomenon. A group of Jews who lived in West Africa near the Gambian River. All right, and it's also important to know what people lived in Senegal, what people lived in near the Gambia River. All right, all these people would have been your Mandinkas, your Wolofs, your Saniki, your Mandi tribes. All right, this would have been your Mandi tribes, and it's important because we just reviewed some Israelite history on the Mandi. But it goes on to say some of the people here believe in Muhammad, but the majority are idol worships, wrote the nameless Portuguese navigator. All right, we know these Mandi or these so-called Jews were converted to Mohammedanism or Islam. Now, this is how we know it's talking about the Mandinka people or the Mandi people, because it says, in this land, the Jews are known as Gauls, all right? The Jews are known as Gauls, all right? And that's actually a specific class amongst the Mandinka people or the Mandi people. They're known as Gauls, griots, bards, things like that. Those are the titles they're usually known as. And what they do is play music, and they're storytellers and things like poets. So they're basically musicians, these griots or these Gauls or these bards, who actually are Mandinka or Mandi. But it says, in this land there are Jews known as Gauls, and they are black like the rest of the inhabitants, but they have no synagogue and do not conduct Jewish ceremonies. Many societies in West Africa have wandering storytellers known as the griots, the Jeli, the Jai, the Jawal, the Jula. All these are amongst the Mandi people. All right. And it seems that these are the same Gauls our Portuguese navigators saw. All right. And yeah, they were. But again, this is the picture on the left is what the Portuguese navigator drew of what these Jews look like, and to the right is an actual depiction of what they look like today. Just a regular Mandi person, same instrument, same griot, same Gaul. So, and even on the next page right here, it gives us a depiction of some of the women within a village and what they look like. Look like the average African traditional village. Specifically when you look at the clothes and the jewelry and the ornaments, things like that, and even the huts. So we know this talking about the Mandi people. But again, continuing. So we just reviewed all that information and showed that these Jews within Africa and even the ancient Israelites before they even came into Africa or diaspora, that they was black. So this is why this source is so important. All right. It says, or what the source is called A History of the Jews, Solomon Grizel. All right. So we're going to start at the highlighted. It says other Jews from the former population of Caesarea or Caesarea fled completely beyond the reach of Rome into the Sahara desert, into the desert to the south. All right. And this is why we know these Israelites fled into Africa, during these or after these certain captivities, because they had no reach of them once they got into the desert. All right. Rome didn't have no jurisdiction in the desert, Greece, all these other locations. Who else? The Babylonians, the Assyrians. The Babylonians and Assyrians didn't go that far into Africa, but what was it? They went down to the Nile Valley up to Ethiopia. But again, other Jews from the former population of Caesarea fled completely beyond the reach of Rome into the desert of the south or to the south. Such is the explanation on how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed a physical characteristic which it is said still makes them approximately very close the original Jewish population of Palestine. Let me read that again. Such is the explanation how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes, toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed of physical characteristics which it is said still makes them approximately very closely the original Jewish population of Palestine. All right. So we know the Jews in the Sahara or sub-Saharan Africa, they're all black. And it's saying right here in this source that the Jews that fled into the sub-Saharan or fled into the Sahara, they possess the same physical characteristics that will make them very closely, or excuse me, very closely the original Jewish population of Palestine. All right. So again, that lets us know again that this original Jewish population of Palestine was black, just like the Jews within the Sahara. All right. So the Sephardic Atlantic is where we're about to go to now. Continue to bring out source material. All right, we're going to start the sentence before this, before the highlighted. It says, at the same time, Christian and anti-Jewish discourses were bound up with the social practices of blackening. As Jonathan Scorch has convincingly argued, early modern Jews were not automatically white. All right. So early modern Jews were not automatically white, but they were easily counted amongst black people. All right. So when people tell you there's no such thing as a black Jew, simply reply to them, Jews can be easily counted amongst black people. All right. And we know this. Continuing. History in Black African Americans in the Search of an Ancient Past. The book to the left, source to the left. Starting at the very top. It states, in medieval literature, a theory prevailed in which the Jews were part of the black race, or were at least dark-skinned. A number of bizarre examples were brought forth as proof. One was that because Jewish religion law commands the coitus takes place in the dark, Jewish children are born with dark skins. The image of the Jews as dark-skinned fits in with the image of the southern Mediterranean type, because the Mediterranean races were dark-skinned Negroid people. Indeed, the Jews practically became the prototypical Mediterranean, small, black, and hairy all over. All right, in Issa sur la regeneration physique, it states, or Abbe Grior wrote that rarely does one meet a pale-colored Jew. All right, so rarely does one meet a pale-colored Jew, and that was during their time. The most of them are brownish with curly hair. The image of the Semitic Mediterranean Jew as black occupied a significant place in both popular and learned anti-Semitic literature of the 19th century. Some, like Houston Stewart Chamberlain, in Foundations of the 19th Century, described as an admixture of Negro blood with the Jewish in the diaspora of Alexandria. In the early 20th century anti-Semitic and racist literature, the Oriental Semitic Hamitic race was depicted as the complete opposite of the white race. Jewish blood is dark black, wrote Max Breuer, a racist, anti-intellectual, and anti-Semitic author who produced a series of articles in which Jews are exemplified as utterly negative, darker character, and Judaism as a black essence. All right, Judaism as a black essence. All right. So now we're about to get into some of this, I guess you say, newer medieval literature regarding the depiction of these peoples, or the Jewish race, Jewish nation, Israelite race, Israelite nation, right? Before we get started, check the comment section. All right. Well, y'all having conversations amongst yourself. Okay. So again, anybody have any questions or anything, questions, comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. Continuing on. Okay, so Tudor Parfit, Black Jews in African America. About to read a few slides from this book. All right, so it says in 1606, the Spanish, let me see. This is something that's blocking my view. Sorry, family. I'm trying to get this out the way so I can read what this is saying. Okay, but it says in 1606, the Spanish Benedictine monk of the historian Fray de Scandovo, then Bishop of Pamplona in northern Spain, made a connection between Jews and blacks through the inedible nature of the respective essential characteristics. He wrote that and the descendants of Jews remained and continued the bad inclinations of their ancient irregularitude and false belief, and failed beliefs, as in blacks, the inseparable accident of their negritude. All right, and negritude is just black color or dark color. For if 1,000 times they are with white women, their children are born with dark skin of their parents. All right. So this is talking about the Jews. He said, for if 1,000 times they are with white women, their children are born with the dark skin of their parents. Writing problematic against the new Jewish converts to Christianity about 1541, Francisco Machado linked Jews and blacks through their innate undesirability. He tried to imagine Portugal cleansed of heresy and of Jewish ceremonies, and of Moors and blacks. Such linkage and connections fed into discourse, which also proclaimed that a color distinction should be drawn between white Europeans and dark Jews. All right. So we can see at some point in time, it was well known, it was well established that, these Jews were dark, these Jews were black, these Jews were African, these Jews were Negroes. All right. Next slide. Along European tradition maintains that the Jews in general were certainly black, metaphorically, in the sense that they were diabolically and evil, as well as black, literally. All right. So they were metaphorically saw as black, and they were literally saw as black. So you can't get around that. One Christian critic of the supposedly Jewish Pope, and Anacletus, all right. So one Christian critic of the supposedly Jewish Pope, Anacletus II, elected in 1113 or 1130, hinting that Jews were generally regarded as dark when he noted that the Pope was dark and pale, more like an Arab and a Jew than a Christian. All right. So they even noted down that a Pope was dark and pale like a Jew or an Arab. All right. Sir William Britton, the English parliamentary, soldier, and writer, happened to visit a Sephardi synagogue in Amsterdam, where he commented that the Jews were very dark-skinned and lascivious. They were mostly black and insanably giving it to women. All right, so again, this is within Amsterdam. This is within Europe at a Sephardic synagogue. And they notated that these Jews were very dark. All right, they were most black. Can't get around that. You can't. Continuing. The 13th century problematic text, R. Yosef ben Nathan, sought to rebuke Christian charges that Jews were dark and unattractive. Why, the text reads, are the majority of Gentiles white and unattractive, while the majority of Jews are black and ugly? All right, so again, they describe the Jews as black and ugly. The writer explained this through an analogy of ripened fruit, plums and sloes. He argued are white at the start and become dark when they are ripe, whereas fruits like apples and apricots, which are red to start, would finish up with white and shrivel. All right, so again, R. Yosef ben Nathan, within his text, within his writings, he stated that why are a majority of the Jews black and ugly? All right, so again, more evidences, more sources showing that these Jews were, seen as black, seen as Negroes. Next source, about to read a couple sources out this book. I highly recommend Israelites, people that want to know more about Jews within America. Get this book, Jews and Blacks in the Early Modern World. We're going to start to highlight it. It says, it may well be that this charge, the Christians saw Jews and blacks and ugly, was invented, and that it reveals more about the Jewish self-image than about how Christians actually saw them. All right. Next highlighted section, it says one Christian writer depicted the much revealed Jewish Pope Anacletus II, all right, which we just read, as physical, deformed, stinking with Jewish odor, and dark and pale, more like a Jew or an Arab than a Christian. All right. And I did not mean to put this in here twice, but we're going to read it again. All right. So we can go to the next source. We're going to start at the very top. At the highlighted section, it says, The English Sir William Brenton visited one of the Sephardic synagogues in Amsterdam in 1635 and said that the Jewish men were most black. All right, and this is a different synagogue. In 1643, Isaac de la Prairie contended that once the Jews converted to Christianity, they would no longer have this dark complexion. All right, and this is what they wanted to. This is actually what they wanted to do. All right, they actually planned on trying to get these Jews to mix with European women, trying to mix with the Jews in a sense so they can white out their seed. Because again, in 1643, Isaac Pereire stated that once the Jews convert to Christianity, they will no longer have their dark complexion. All right. Next highlighted section. An Englishman, John Greenhow, visited the Jews synagogue in London and wrote a friend about it in 1662, describing the chief ruler, probably the president of the Parnasim, as very rich merchant, a big, black, fierce, and stern man. All right, and this is within London now. The chief ruler of the Sephardic synagogue is described as big, black, fierce, and stern man. At the letter's end, Greenhow reiterated that the ethnographic precision that the 100 or so Jews he saw at the synagogue all are generally black, so as they may be distinguished from Spaniards or native Greeks. For the Jews' hair have a deeper texture of more perfect raven black. All right. So even within London, the Jews that they saw within the synagogue, they was black, so that it distinguished them from the Spaniards and the native Greeks. All right. In 1690, the Reverend Robert Kirk visited the same Krings Church Alley Synagogue, all right, where he said they were all very black men and indistinct in their reasoning as gypsies. All right, continuing on, next highlighted, William Black, Secretary of Commissioners appointed by Governor William Gooch of Virginia to deal with the Indians, described Hester Levy, a daughter of the wealthiest and best known New York Jew, Moses Levy, whom he met in June 1744, as a very well made hair, complexion black. All right. So if his daughter was black, what was her father? Moses Levy. All right. So very well made, her complexion black, but very comely. She had two charming eyes and well turned with a beautiful head of hair, coal black. All right. So he described this Jew or descendant of Moses Levy as dark but comely. And this is within New York in the 1700s at that. All right. So continuing, it says as late as 1753, during the debate in England, over the years, Jewish Naturalization Act, one polemistic suggested that anyone who wanted to look Jewish should rub herself with a walnut husk to fit such endurable hue and make your complete olive beauties with lively complexion like that of a Negro from the coast of Guinea. So again, this is letting us know that if you wanted to look Jewish, you should rub yourself with a walnut husk so you can look like a Negro from Guinea. All right, just letting us know if you wanted to look like a Jew, you needed to be black, according to this source. Continuing on. It says, while such views may be passed off as mere descriptive statements of the darkness of Sephardic Jews, they soon connected intimately with prescriptive notions based on the significant physical or racial characteristics. All right, so next highlighted, it says, though a mulatto of the fourth descent may vote at elections, yet the Jews, many of whom are mulattoes of that degree, are by our wise legislator absolutely excluded from the privilege and being expressly enacted that they, the said mulattoes, shall enjoy all privileges and immunities of His Majesty, white subjects of the island, provided that they are brought up in a Christian religion. All right, so the Jews within I believe this is Kingston, Jamaica. Yes, Kingston, Jamaica, were said to be mulattoes or light-skinned blacks A lot of time people wasn't even mixed, and they will refer to people as mulattoes, which we'll read down in the next highlighted. But again, it's important to note that they told the Jews that they would be treated as whites if they were brought up in the Christian religion. All right. But again, many Jews were mulattoes of the fourth degree. That is a very light skinned black. So it's not even mixed a lot of these times. A lot of times these Jews that are coming over here are just light skinned blacks and not even mixed. So again, Jews in Kingston, Jamaica, light skinned blacks. Highlighted section, we will start. Same source. Christian thought, especially among Iberians, often equated Jews and blacks in a moral manner. The 15th century Portuguese poet Alvaro de Brito explicated the term Moreno in the following lines, punning on the general negative meaning of Negro. All right. San Moreno os que moran no safe un, excuse me, no safe mu Ifisi, blah, blah, blah. Don't want to butcher this, but those Negroes are Barbanels. All right. So this is what it says from its translation. Those who fake our faith are the Morenos, very faithless baptized, who to the old law are bound by the black our Barbanels indoctrinated. All right. So we know that our Barbanels were a prominent Sephardic Jewish family within Portugal, within Amsterdam, within Spain. All right. And again, they're letting us know that these people were black. And there's even more sources letting us know that these specific pedigree of Sephardic Jews, the Barbanels, were black as well. And this is within, I believe, it's within a poem that this is mentioned. Yes, it's mentioned in Alvaro de Brito's poem. So, this is very interesting. But continuing, this is where it gets real interesting. Now, this is hard to read for some reason. Whenever I try to zoom in, get a good picture of it, it's hard to read. But I will leave a source in this chat for you. You can find this book on archive.com, and you can go read it yourself. Zoom in and try to get a better depiction of it yourself. But it's called The Nazis. And we all heard that Hitler said this about Jews being black, or whatever he supposedly said in that book that was going on with Deshaun Jackson. So the question is, did he really say that, or did he say something to that length? All right. Did he really say that, or did he say something to that length? All right. So to the right, it's a picture of Nazis, Hitler and him, and we have a description of what's going on under it. And again, it's real blurry. Again, I don't know why, but it says, let's see if I can try to read it. I'm gonna start from the top. It says Hitler personally approves a new German movie when the further complained that films exposing the Nazi line were too seen, rushed a pair of anti-Semitic pictures into production. In one segment of a Nazi instrumental film to the right, the genetic heritage of the Jew is proportionately traced to Orientals, Negroes, Near Asians, and Hamitic people. Hence, the film concludes, the Jew is a bastard, all right? And it says below is the illustration of the characters. And that's all I can read, really. But again, the important thing to note is what Hitler said. And even once we go over to the next slide, we'll actually see what he meant when he said the Jew is a bastard, because he has it illustrated. So again, this is the illustration from the book. Look at this Semitic Negro, all right, Oriental. This is your typical look of your ancient Arab, your ancient Moabite, ancient Edomite, ancient Israelite, right? This is the pretty much your generic Semitic look. All right, here's your Hamite, and then here's your modern day Jew, and that's the word bastard. So I guess that's what they were saying when he said the modern day Jew comes from the Oriental, the Negro, the Asian, and the Hamite. Thus, the modern day Jew is a bastard. And again, I'm sorry if you take offense to this, my modern day Ashkenazi Jews, but again, I'm just quoting from the book, not my opinion. I'm just quoting from the book. But again, it is interesting to note that Hitler did know that these the ancient Israelites were black. And if you look at the left, that's his depiction of an Oriental, look like a Negro, look like a brother. All right. And to continue to get into some of that, some of this type of literature within Nazi Germany, we can go to this source right here to the left, Bagateles por un massacre. All right, and this is dealing with a massacre that went on during this time. And luckily, I was able to get a English translated version of this copy. But the picture to the left is the version. I believe it's in German or French or something, some other language that's not English, rather. But the highlighted section, it says the nigger Jew is in the process of forcing the Aryans to topple into communicism and robotic art, into the objectives of mortality of perfecting slaves of the Jews. All right, so the Jew is a nigger. The Semitic race does not exist. It is a Freemason invention. All right, the Jew is only a cross between nigger and Asiatic barbarians. All right, and this is coming from people within Nazi Germany. So it's a good question. What did they know that the average people didn't know? Again, they stated that the Jew is a nigger. All right, it's that simple. He said the Semitic race does not exist. I don't agree with that. But again, he says the Jew is only a cross between the nigger and the Asiatic barbarian. It's a pretty good source to go to. So again, continuing on, more source material, more references on Black Jews, and this source right here is really gonna kind of give us some good information to get into, because even with this, once I found this source, it kind of led me to finding more information about this type of thing, what we're about to read, and it's actually going to lead us into going over some videos of showing sources where Jews were actually sent into slavery, where it's literally saying Jews were sent to Haiti, Jews were sent into Brazil, Jews were working alongside Africans. That's what we're going to get into next, most high willing, the next week or so. But source to the left, Hybrid Hate, Tudor Parfit, starting at the top highlighted section. It says, Michaels argues that in Prussia, there was no use for the Jews. They could not readily be made productive or beneficial, but they could be transformed into rather more useful Negroes. If only Prussia owned sugar islands, he lamented, Jews could be put to work in the Caribbean, where their non-European origins as a southern race of Asiatic refugees would enable them to enact in hard labor alongside their Black brothers in the unhealthy climate of the slave colonies. All right. Again, why would it call Negroes within America their Black brothers? It says, if only Prussia owns sugar islands, he lamented, Jews could be put to work in the Caribbean, where their non-European origins as a southern race of Asiatic refugees would enable them to engage in hard labor alongside their Black brothers. All right. That's very important. At the same time as Jews in Europe and in the United States were being understood as having Black blood. All right. So at a certain time in Europe and in the United States, it was an understanding that Jews had Black blood. And the model of African treatment or American treatment of Blacks was inspiring attitudes towards European Jews. Black ethnic groups throughout Africa, indeed people of color throughout the world, were being understood and explicated in every remote corner of the colonized world as having Jewish blood. All right, getting close to wrapping up these sources. But again, Russia and the Negro, Blacks in Russian history and thought. And let's see, what's a good place to start? I'm going to start in the middle of this paragraph where it says in relating. In relating, all right? So, in relating the story of Afghan Negroes, she accepts the interpretation of Vardi and other Russian scholars and adds that the presence of Africans there should not be surprising, since starting from ancient times, slave trading colonies has been established on the Black Sea, alternately by Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and Turks, and all these people was enslaving the Jews. But she goes on to say that she notes that the Tarshish officials frequently listed Negroes as Arabs and Jews. All right. So again, Jews are known as Negroes. All right. Jews are known as Negroes. Jews are known as blacks. The recurring theme of this video. All right. That's the recurring theme of this video. Jamaica in 1850. All right. On the effects of the 16th year of freedmen on the slave colony by John Bigelow. All right. We're going to start at the very top. Colored Jews. Kingston contains about 40,000 inhabitants at present, 9/10 of whom are at least colored. All right. 9/10 of whom are at least colored. All right. That's 90%. It goes on to say, in walking the streets, one scarcely meets white persons as frequently as he would meet colored peoples in New York City. All right. The whites are mostly English or of English descent. All right. He didn't say Jew. He didn't say of Jewish descent. He didn't say of Ashkenazi descent. He said of English or English descent. All right. So the whites are the whites are mostly of English descent. The proportion of Jews the proportion of Jews of all colors is fairly great. I had never seen a black Jew before, and I was astonished to find little expression of Israelite profiles was affected by color. My imagination could have never combined the sharp and cunning features of Isaac with the thick lips, careless, unthinking countenance of Cujo, but nature has done it perfectly, if that can be called a combination in which the Negro furnishes the color and the Jew all the rest of the expression. All right. So again, 9/10 of the people within Jamaica was black within this time, or Kingston, Jamaica. 90% of the people within Kingston, Jamaica during this time, 1850, were black, and they were the Jews. So again, this is more than likely descendants of those Sephardim who were exiled to this colony, or who took refuge to Jamaica. Again, the Jews, a study of race and environment, Morris Fishburne. The most curious class of Negro Jews is said to have existed in Jamaica and in Suriname. In Jamaica, there was a very large degree of intermarriage of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews with Negroes. All right, and we know that's true. All right. And today, there is said to be a very large colored population bearing Jewish names, but nearly all of whom have, however, lapsed from Judaism. All right. So we know a lot of these black Sephardim were mixing with the slaves or mixing with the colored women, wherever they were, even if they was in Jamaica, Suriname, South Carolina, Georgia. These Sephardim were mixing with the black people. Even in West Africa, they were mixing with the black natives. All right, so this is important, or this is a very interesting source right here, the Jewish nation of the Caribbean, the Spanish Portuguese Jewish settlements in the Caribbean, and the Guanis. All right, and this is dealing with Isaac Mendez. All right, Isaac Mendez is a Jew. So Mendez was born in 1790 or the 1800s. Today he is considered the national painter of Jamaica, and his etchings of the Belvis Mark Synagogue of London is world famous. In Jamaica, he observed the black population, its culture and its customs, and he painted them. All right, so this Sephardic Jew, one of the actually the first painter or the first artist in Jamaica, goes by the name of Isaac Mendez. He observed the black populations, its culture and its customs, and he painted them. And it goes on to say, in racial consciousness, Jamaica, he was quite exceptional, seeing the black community as equals with its own culture and folklore. All right. So why did this Black Sephardic Jew see the Black community as his equal? Because they was related. Next source. Free Blacks and Mulattoes in South Carolina, 1850 census. So to the left, we see a whole family of Cohens, and to the right, we see a whole family of DaCostas. And we got to chew the meat, spit out the bone with everything family. Again, we just saw a previous few sources back that they was letting us know that the Jews in Jamaica were light-skinned blacks. All right, light-skinned blacks, and that they were calling them mulatto. So again, this Cohen family more than likely is just light-skinned, or they're probably just pitch black and they just wanted to put a mulatto. All right, we don't know. But again, this is a family of Sephardic Jews that came and settled within South Carolina, the Cohens. And we see a large amount of black Cohens within South Carolina today. And even to the right, we have the DaCostas. All right, this is a pretty prominent black Jewish family as well. And they came by way of Ireland. All right, and I will answer your question. I'm going to answer that question in a minute. That's a good question. But I'll continue to I'm looking at the chat, sorry. But continuing to let's see, dig off what we just brought out regarding the Costas. We're gonna go to a gentleman of color, the life James Fortin. All right, and it says like the Purvises, William DaCosta was probably of Jewish as well as African ancestry. All right, the DaCostas had been prominent members of Charleston's Jewish community since the 1740s. All right, and we see that they were people of color. All right, so a people of color, prominent members of a Charleston Jewish community since the 1740s, and even the Cohens were people of color. All right, next source, going back to Russia and the Negro. All right, going back to Russia and the Negro, Blacks in Russia, History and Thought. It says, starting at the highlighted, in Boston in 1808, Nero Prince was elected as the second Grand Master of the African Grand Lodge of the Masons. Thereafter called the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in honor of the first Grand Master, who had died in December 1807. Next highlighted, by one's account, Nero was said to be a native of Russia, a Jew. All right, he was a Sephardic Jew who migrated from Russia, but that's not it, who identified with colored people. All right, and the picture you're looking at on the screen is actually a depiction of Prince Nero, the Black Sephardic Jew who identified with colored people. All right, and it's also interesting to note that this Sephardic Jew is the chief of the prince of the Grand Master African Lodge, or the African Grand Master Lodge. All right, getting ready to wrap it up. The soul of Judaism. All right, the soul of Judaism to the left. I'm going to read this whole page. It says, here in the United States, Black Jews grew more vocal as well. In 1988, the civil rights activist Julius Lester chronicled his Orthodox conversion to Judaism in Love Song. All right. In 1996, James McBride told the story of his Orthodox Jewish mother and Black Jewish father in pre-civil rights America in The Color of Water, a Black man's tribute to his white mother. All right. In 2001, Rebecca Walker, the daughter of a acclaimed civil rights lawyer, Mel Levanta, and renowned author Alice Walker, wrote the New York Times bestseller, Black, White, Jewish Autobiography of a Shifting Self. Other Black Jews, all right, because again, this video is dealing with source material regarding Black Jews. All right, so other Black Jews who have risen to prominence included author Walker Mosley, civil rights lawyer Lanny Garner, actors Yaphet Kotto and Lisa Bonet, former Charleston Police Chief Reuben Greenberg, musician Lenny Kravitz, and Joshua Redman, gospel singer Joshua Nelson, and New York publisher Elmer Tatum, as well as, of course, the entertainer Sammy Davis Jr. or Sammy Davis Jr. They also include in vogue performers like Yitz Jordan, aka Love, an Orthodox Hebrew artist, and the Canadian-born Black Jewish rapper Aubrey Graham, aka Drake. All right, and I'm gonna leave you all with this question. All right, I'm gonna leave you all with this question. Source to the left. Who then are these Black Hebrews? All right. Who then are these Black Jews that we see throughout history, within Africa, within Americas? Are they legit? Are they converts? All right. Who are these Black people claiming to be Israelites? Who are they? So I'm going to read this. Who then are the Black Hebrews whose existence was only brought to our attention between 1960 and 1965? All right, but we know our tradition goes back to since before we was even over here. They come from the Black American world and are mainly to be found in the ghettos, where they claim to be true believers in the law of Moses and the descendants of those who conclude the alliance with Yahweh, that is, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Scattered throughout the big cities of the East and the Center, like New York and Chicago, there are in the United States as a whole several thousands of Blacks, all right, who believe who believe in Judaism, but the ideology of their beliefs within the apparent homogeneous community are very varied and range from Orthodox Judaism to forms of Christianity. All right, family. So again, who are these Black Jews? So with that, we're going to wrap it up. But first, before we wrap it up, we're going to wrap it up with depictions of Black Jews or Jews of color, things of that sort. There's a few pictures, get an illustration. And this is a Semitic statue head of King Jehu and or King Ahab. All right. We see that they more than likely shot the nose off, did something with the nose because the nose is broken. But interesting enough, we see the headband. A lot of our people still wear those headbands today. We see the cornrows, we see the beard. All right. See the features. Again, this is said to be a statue head of King Jehu or King Ahab. And of course, these are either cornrows or dreads pulled to the back. Either cornrows or dreads pulled to the back. The brother said, our people with white fathers need to repent. That's funny. But no, as well as this depiction right here, we have depictions of the daughters of Zion. All right, a couple Ethiopian Jewish women, a couple depictions of the daughters of Zion with their beautiful garments on. All right, just give you little depictions of the descendants of these Jews today. All right, African Jews, West Africa, Philosopher Jews, Abyssinia. All right, and we can see the early Philosopher Jews looked a lot like West Africans opposed to modern day Abyssinians. Let's just say that. And here is a picture of King Eri of Agulari Kingdom. King Eri, seventh son of Gad, finding the book of Exodus and Numbers. All right. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and things of that sort. Okay, and of course, right here to the left, we see old pictures of the Black Israelites of Morocco. All right. And this is actually taken from a picture in a Moroccan Jewish synagogue. We see all these people are Black and Negroid, and even to the right, we have more pictures of Moroccan Jews of color. See, they're highly melanated in both pictures. And of course, on the walls of Jerusalem, or on Jerusalem walls, artists memorializes Black Rabbi from Harlem. All right, this is Rabbi Herman making big noise. Rest his soul. But he was actually memorialized in Jerusalem. All right, Black Rabbi from America memorialized on the walls of Jerusalem. All right, that's big. That's big. Again, just showing you pictures of Black Jews, descendants of the Israelites, basically. All right, Sephardic Jew Joseph Nasi. All right, or Joseph Nasi. All right. To the right we have Thomas LaRue. All right, Jewish musician. And to the left we have Francis Louis Cardozo. All right, Jews of color. Where did I get those last pictures from? Okay, William McLean, are you referencing these pictures or the pictures of the Moroccan Jews? Pictures of Rabbi Herman or the pictures of the Moroccan Jews? But again, Sephardic Jew Joseph Nasi, Sephardic Jew Francis Louis Cardoza, and African American Jew Thomas LaRue. All right, African American Jews within a synagogue within New York, late 1900s. Rabbi Yeshua or Yehoshua and his wife. I actually plan on visiting New York here soon, within the next month or so, while I'm over break for school. Visit some of our stomping grounds, man. Visit some of those old temples our ancestors built coming out of slavery. Get some documentation and things like that. Most High willing, I'm able to fulfill that. But again, we've all saw this picture before. The Moorish Zionist temple of the Moorish Jews. All right. Again, more pictures of Black Jews within America. All right, ESPN. Oh, are the Jamaicans and Haitians Israelites, or some of them? Yes, majority of Haitians and Jamaicans are Israelites. A lot of Jamaicans descend from Israelites by way of the Sephardics and by way of Israelites coming from West Africa, and even the Haitians do. But yes, a lot of Haitians. Um, Again, I say 60 to 70%, 60 to 70%, or even 70 to 80% of blacks in America, blacks in Jamaica, and things like that will be Israelites just based off of genetics. But again, a lot of the black Jamaicans are Sephardic Jews or have Sephardic ancestry and don't even know it. We brought that out in the video before. And brother, I got the pictures regarding the Moroccan Jews. I got one from a video. I'll put the video in the chat and I'll let you know when I put it in there. And I got the other picture from, let me go back, refresh my memory. I'm sorry. And I actually got the picture from the right from a book. All right. So the one on the left is from a brother who actually visited Morocco. And it's even more pictures of them in there. So in a video, he shows more pictures of Black Jews that's the ancient Jews that migrated to there. But I'll put that link in the bio for you once I get time. Just I'll make sure to do that. Brother says, when will you do a video on the Zulu tribes? I'm doing it soon. It's a lot of videos I'm trying to get done. We still got to finish Legends of the Lost Tribes. We still got to finish the Mandy Part 2. We still got to identify where the Sabat Yon is at. But of course, I will be bringing out the Zulu history soon within the Bantu Israelite history Part 2. All right. So when I talk about the Bantus, it will have the Zulu information in there. Are Zimbabwe people descendants of Israelites? Yes, yes. Specific the Limba. I know the Limba are in Zimbabwe. The Shona, the Vimba, the Luba, things of that. So yes, a lot of them are. Some are not. Just depends on the tribe. So we now we know we Jew. What do we do with the information besides keeping the law? Besides keeping the law, I would say we just need to continue to build with each other. We need to try to build the gap between Africa and the Americas. I know for me personally, I've been trying to get in contact with a lot of the elders of the Israelite communities in in Africa. I know a few elders from the Igbo community. I know a few elders from the Limba community, and I believe that's it. Actually, just those two communities I know elders from. So besides keeping the law, what we should do with this information is try to build with our people. Try to just try to like we have to make a foundation for the next generation coming up. In order for us to return, because we know at some point in time we will be regathered for the four corners of the earth. But as of now, besides keeping the law, besides fighting for our salvation, besides loving the Most High, besides that, I'll say keep stepping on everybody's neck with this information, because like this right here, this is just a light video. This is just bringing out sources saying that the Jews are black, but we just got to keep putting the information out there, because when we are putting the information out there, um, you know, it's actually waking our people up. And we have a lot of people waking up in Africa. We have a lot of people continuing to wake up in the Americas. So it's really hard to answer what should we do, with all this information, because right now we just working on our salvation and praying that the Most High redeem us during our generation. You know, if that answers your question. Oh, shalom, shalom, man. Go, shalom to my Yoruba brother, shalom. All right, but again, continuing on with the rest of these pictures. All right, went over that one. Alexander Alan's Ethiopian Hebrew series, Jewish Museum, New York. And this is the type of stuff our ancestors had our youth doing. This is actually from a Hebrew school in New York. In New York. All right. Jewish youth. And right here we have Sephardic Jews of Cape Verde. All right, as we can see, they are melanated. All right, as we can see, they are melanated. Another picture. You got the two brothers to the left, and you can find these pictures right here. All you have to do is search. All you have to do is Google Cape Verde Jewish Project. Cape Verde Jewish Project, and we see these Jews are melanated, look like American blacks, if you can say. And for my brother William McLean, I'm actually going to see if I can play that video for you in a second. All right, even right here we have Igbo Jews, Nigeria, Igbo Jews, Nigeria. All right, largest Israelite community in the world, oldest Israelite community within the world. All right, first Israelite community in the world, Igbo Jews, Nigeria. And yes, I do agree. We do have to get our people away from Islam and even Christianity. I definitely agree with that. Right here, we have a picture of the Dan tribe, the tribe of Dan, West Africa, Ivory Coast. All right, a few pictures of their elders. And even this is interesting because these are actually Jews from Yemen. All right, these are Yemenite Jews who actually moved and migrated into Tanzania fairly recent. All right, so they don't really look like the typical Yemenite Jews that we are shown. All right. So again, these are Yemenite Jews from Tanzania. Well, they live in Tanzania today, but again, they don't look like the typical. They don't look like the typical Yemenite Jew that they show us. They look more, they look more like us, more Bantu. All right. I'm done with that. But if anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Any questions, comments? Anybody want to come on real quick? I'll throw the link in the chat. But as of now, I'm about to bring up that video for the brother so he can see some more information regarding those Moroccan Jews. This is the source for it. Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. All right, so let me share my screen. And I definitely recommend everyone. Let me stop sharing and share again. I recommend everyone to go check out this brother's page. Sincerely, I do, because he's done great work. I'm sure some of you all have already seen him, but if you haven't, he's done great work. He's one of the few Israelite brethren. He's actually from Jamaica. He's one of the few Israelite brethren that's been to Jerusalem, that's been to Morocco, that's been to these places, and got footage of the people, touch ground, touch base with the people. And he has many videos where he interviews people in Jerusalem. He interviews native Ishmaelites who are black as he. All right, and this is one of those interviews right here. But this is the video he did regarding those Jews in Morocco.
Just in time for the holidays and get 25% off your Manscaped order. You got me the performance package by
Muslim Jewish together.
I'm gonna start it over for you.
Mohammed bin Abdullah, all of whom are Muslim. Here I stand in the Mila, the Jewish quarters of the Medina of Esrauya, formerly known as Magadur. In the 18th century, before and even to a time period after, this portion of the fortified city was home to a thriving Israelite community. Today, as you see, it's only just a thing of the past. Although people live here, all of whom are Muslim, the only remembrance, a reminder, are the derelict buildings and heaps of rubble. Who were these Jews of the Medina in Magadur, who according to history were great tradesmen and were favored and respected by some of the greatest sultans of the past, including Mohammed bin Abdullah, the grandson of the famous Black Sultan of the Jews way, identity that many seek after.
Inside this restored synagogue, there are pictures everywhere. Historical evidence is right before my eyes. This extraordinary building has much to be desired.
Here inside the synagogue, known as the Synagogue of Hamim Binto, we find some very interesting pictures of the Jews of Magadur.
Upon closer examination of the four pictures, it is clear to see that the Moroccan Jews of the past were highly melanated beings. Here we see black Jews walking through the Medina. Below we see these same dark-skinned Israelites at the Bab el-Masa in Magadur, which was built in 1769 during the reign of Mohammed bin Abdullah as part of the reconstruction of the fortification of the city. As you can see, there is an engraved inscription above the arch as to when and who constructed this forted gate. In this recent picture of the same door, a close and more detailed inscription can be seen. This picture isn't quite as clear. However, the fourth picture clearly depicts these ancient Israelites who lived in the Medina as melanated people. Wanting to understand more about the pictures, I asked the Guardian, who was unwilling to go on camera, to inform me of what these pictures represent. These were his words.
Is Muslim et Jewish together.
Muslim Jewish together.
Together, c'est avant la Deuxième Guerre.
I was not at all surprised by the Guardian's statement. From a Quranic point of view, the term Muslim, meaning one who submits, predates Muhammad. It was time to explore the rooms. In the corner, there was.
But yes, like I was saying, that's a very good brother right here. Page to check out. Put the link to the video and even to his channel within the chat. Because again, we don't have Israelites, or we don't have a lot of Israelites out here doing that type of work. Actually spending money, traveling to these places, getting it on film, getting it produced into documentaries for us. We don't have a lot of people doing that, man. And he has a lot of work that he's put in. Like I said, he's been to Dimona, he's been to Tel Aviv, things of that sort. A lot of documentary on his channel. He's even did an interview with Rabbi Harry Rosenberg. So definitely a channel you should watch. What is the Yoruba's DNA? Majority of the Yoruba DNA would be, or the majority of the Yoruba would consist of E1B1A. Yeah, majority of the Yoruba would be E1B1A. But if anyone has any more questions, concerns, comments, rebuttals, rebukes, anything, go ahead and drop it in the chat before we get up out of here. Peace Ephraim means in Yoruba, Ephraim. Ephraim, meaning helping yourself or drag yourself or call yourself. Yes. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But again, Most High willing, we'll be back tomorrow or Sunday for another video. Just to give you all a little insight on the videos we have planned coming up, or the videos I have been working on. I'm going to be dealing with the Mandi Israelite History Part 2. We're also going to be dealing with identifying where the Sambat Yom River really is, because we see it in Jewish literature, and it tells us that the 10 tribes were beyond that location. So if we can identify where the Sambat Yom River is, we can identify where the 10 tribes is. I mean, we already say they're in West Africa. Well, I say they are, according to my studies. So where would the Sambat Yom be? It would have to be in sub-Saharan Africa. Another video we'll be bringing out is the history of Jews and Hebrews, Israelites. That's what in the slave trade. When I say Jews, I'm talking about European Jews or Sephardic Jews coming from Europe. And when I say Hebrew Israelites, I'm talking about West African Israelites. Going to show how they both were involved in the slave trade, how they both were slaves, how they both worked alongside each other. So you had Sephardic Jews in the slave fields working alongside Igbo Jews or Akan or Yoruba. You get what I'm saying? We also have the Bantu Israelite History Part 2 video coming, Most High willing, sometime soon. I was actually waiting on a book to arrive for that video. So I got the book. All right, I'm gonna read over it, add some documentation from the book to the presentation. And then yeah, man, that's what we have. Let's any other thing comes up or any more information comes by me, then those are the videos you should expect from me within the next couple of weeks, within the next month. The brother says, if our people, black fathers with European R1B, are we still Israel? All right. So are you still a Jew? Would you still be considered Jewish? Yes, anybody can be a Jew, anybody can be Jewish. But as far as you descending from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you wouldn't, because we know that they would have to have one haplogroup, or they would have a haplogroup. Whatever Abraham had, he would pass down to Isaac, and that would get passed down to Jacob, and that would get passed down to Ephraim, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Manasseh, Simeon, Reuben, Zebulun, Naphtali, Dan, Gad. So all of these tribes will have the same haplogroup or mutations that can be traced back to the people they came from. Now, what I will say is, if we look at the Lemma DNA, right, we see that they have multiple haplogroups within their fold or within their component. That's just to show, or that's just showing us that I guess you can say foreigners or strangers or sojourners came into our community, mixed with us, and got black skin. So that's why you see Limbus with haplogroup J and Limbus with haplogroup R, because a long time ago, you know, their parents, those people were converted into the Israelite community. They joined, and we know we have Jewish laws. We have Israelite laws regarding the foreigners and how we should treat them and things of that sort. So I would just say that people that have other haplogroups with other haplogroups than E1B1A, they wouldn't paternally be a son of Abraham, but you could descend from an Israelite mother. More than likely, that's even what happened during slavery. The reason a lot of our people have, you know, European haplogroups is because they raped our foremothers. So if we know that, how do you think the Most High will react to that? Do you think the Most High is just going to cut you off because your foremother was raped? You see what I'm saying? Because if your foremother wasn't raped, more than likely you would be E1B1A. All right. If your foremother wasn't raped, you would more than likely be an E1B1A, and more than likely your mother was L1, L2, L3. More than likely your mother was an Israelite. Yes. I can't wait to bring it out. I don't know which video we're gonna do first. Whichever one, whichever ones to get done first, whichever one has to, seems complete or ready to present first. That's what we're gonna do first. But just know we do have those videos coming out pretty soon. Esco Lou, what's up, my brother? How you been? Shalom. Is that the book? No, brother, that's not the book. That's still coming in. Supposed to arrive. I have to look at my phone, or my email rather, but I ordered it this week, but Thanksgiving and all that stuff. So that book is coming in next week. So again, be on the lookout for that, or be on the lookout in your email when I email you. It says my maternal is L3D3A. Yes. L3 is considered Eurasian. All right. L2, L3 is considered Eurasian. Haplogroups, they know that those are Semitic haplogroups for sure. And they were also said to come into Africa with the Bantu expansion. So L3 and the E1B1A migrated together. But again, for anybody that doesn't have the paternal haplogroup of E1B1A, that doesn't mean you can't keep the faith. That doesn't mean, you can't consider yourself a Jew. You know what I'm saying? Especially when your mother might have that Israelite ancestry legitimately. So, but again, if anybody else has any more questions, please feel free to drop them. If not, man, we're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get to working on another video, another presentation, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Leave a couple, give it a minute or so before I take off. See if any more comments come up. But again, man, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Shalom, my brother. Shalom, my brother. Let's see. While we on here, let's see if I can share something before we get out of here. All right. So I would just share this real quick. I'm gonna play this video and then I'm gonna come back and share one last source. All right, share this video, then I'm gonna come back and play one last source.
I'm back here with Remy from the Igbo tribe out of Nigeria. I'm Amari Stoudemire here, and we're speaking about the Israelite diaspora out of Nigeria and then through the Atlantic trade slave ship into America. So Remy, can you give him a few words about it?
Yeah. As Amari has said, I'm Igbo. The Igbos are composed of exiles from Israel, Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews. They were Igbo people that left Israel and moved to West Africa when the Northern Kingdom was destroyed and when the Southern Kingdom was also destroyed. Jews left and moved into what we know as West Africa now and formed the Igbo people and thrived there until the Europeans came and destroyed the societies and took away very vital parts of the Igbo population, which ended up in the Caribbeans and in what we know as the United States today. From the Igbos, we are taking the majority of the Africans that ended up in America and in the Caribbeans.
Yeah, and that's why we're here today, because we're studying the lost biblical tribes of Israel. And we're giving you a quick timeline on what took place during the times of the Israelites migrating into Africa, forming the Igbo tribe. And then from that, you have the translated slave ship that took all the Israelites into slavery in the different parts of America. And this is why you see me here today, because I am a direct descendant from the ancient tribes of Israel, and my family definitely traveled here to America by way of slave trade from Africa.
Yeah, he got it exactly right. And in fulfillment of the same prophecies that I've had him and Harry talking about, they are reconnecting. Some of them have done their DNA and it links them to us. Like somebody like T.D. Jakes, DNA proved him to be Igbo, just like DNA recently proved me to be Israelite too. My DNA showed definitive traces of Middle East. So what he said is in line. DNA confirmed the history.
Keep it locked right here, man. Stat Academy, giving you the truth, the facts about the biblical tribes of Israel. Peace.
All right, so the person you just saw on the screen was Amari Stoudemire, of course, NBA ex-NBA superstar, as well as the elder Remy of the Igbos. Now, I just wanted to bring out one of his books because when I was reading it, I realized that he mentioned my name within his book, and I just wanted to bring this out, just show you all that we are working out here, we are connecting with our people, and this is coming from Igbo Americans, all right? But it says right here, in the world today, it is the only place from which Omenana, or the law, can radiate to all parts of the world. It is the land folks like William Brown, William Bloodsaw. All right, my name is William Bloodsaw. Randall Benjamin, Apostle Curtis Lewis, T.D. Jakes, Kevin Jones, Forrest Whitaker, Joshua Celestine, Yediah Avery, Dennis E. Allen, and others will have the right to return if they have desire and when they are ready. All right. So shout out to Elder Remy for giving me the mention in his book, man. That's really big, and I appreciate it, Elder. But looking at this comment section real quick, I got to get ready and wrap this up because I got something to do. But can you prove Jesus existed physically? Yes, yes, yes. We actually can. We actually have records of Christ going into different locations. Well, I'm not gonna get into that today, but just know, brother, we can prove that he was a physical person. We can prove that he was a real person. We can prove that he walked this earth. We can prove that he was a man. We have actual descriptions of this man within history and other cultures as well. So that's actually a video we can get into. All right. I'm gonna add that down for us to get into. But with that, family, I say shalom, shalom, shalom. If you're just now tuning in, please go back and watch. And I will see you all tomorrow. Please go back and watch, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Shalom.